Hey everyone, my name is Chris Macdonald. I'm one of SALA full-time faculty that will be offering an option or vertical studio this fall entitled Expression and Collaboration. I hope you've had a chance to read the two-page written summary. And what I'd like to do today is talk briefly about some kind of thematic preoccupations, but also a little bit more, say a little bit more about some of the logistical issues that might concern me. So bear with me, I'm just going to try and share the screen and go through a few pages. Okay, so as I'm sure you recognize, this is Frank Gehry and his associates, Bilbao, Guggenheim. And I think in terms of expression in the medium of architecture, one would have to say that this is undeniably expressive in its nature. Indeed, might be considered the kind of godparent of what we nowadays call architecture. But I guess I would propose to you that this condition of deliberate expression is also such as this 2018 St. Jacob Foundation built by Toulouse of St. John architects. Clearly, we have a different context, different material palette, and likely with a different focus of critical gaze. So there's certainly a rather different set of operating principles that underpin this design from Mr. Gehry. But how exactly does the immense formal distinction between these two projects help us to understand this larger issue of architecture as a medium of expression? And more importantly, how does this begin to inform your own work as young designers? Back to logistics for a moment. Our primary design exploration will take 9 weeks of the term, working in parallel with the team from Stantec Architects, currently completing the schematic design phase of the post-secondary educational building. Vancouver. SALA graduate Eleanor Leclerc will be our immediate contact there and will participate in the studio in a variety of roles throughout the term. This project, using the same program and site as Stantec and their client, will be initially undertaken in groups of 4, with more specific design inquiry by individuals occurring 3 weeks following our fall break. Before we get on to that though, and for the moment I'm kind of withholding the exact nature of the program in sight. We'll begin with 3 weeks of looking at what are some of the ways we can unpack this idea of expression as it occurs within the medium of architecture. So very briefly, the subheadings that I've laid out. To begin with, how might we understand issues of value systems as they encourage expressive impulses? And here I'm illustrating this with the Van der Rohe Seagram building in 1958. So we can observe rather hermetic principles of composition and attitudes towards structure held by the architect. Yet principles of commercial practice and procedure on the part of the client are also surely at play in this seminal work. In this week, as the others, a number of related case studies will be issued to small groups, whose research in each case will be amplified by weekly readings and guest presentations. A second wellspring for expression in design might be those issues of technology and material culture. So issues of technology and material culture are illustrated here in the construction of the vodka palettes by Russian architect Alexander Brodsky. And then finally, third subtopic, as it were. We'll look at issues of program as it informs urban structure. And so program as it informs urban structure, for the purposes of this brief introduction, I'm showing the Putong Children's Library and Art Center complex in Beijing from 2014. So the intent of these initial researches is to assist studio participants in establishing a coherent strategic attitude within which the inevitable pressures of a given design and site can be fruitfully explored. So the other side of all of this is, beyond the content of the studio itself, is this idea of collaboration. Working in a collaborative fashion together with the professional practice, is of course deliberate and important. The collaboration within the studio and various smaller defined partnerships presents an even more compelling venue where ideas are shared and common causes may emerge. Our working environment this term especially will resume and refresh the exhilarating potential of peer-to-peer learning. And the studio is specifically designed to optimize that potential. Subsequent introduction of the site and program will include the self-declared formation of 4 working teams, and each team will establish a critical strategy for the project evolving into a schematic design prior to the fall midterm break. After the break, individuals from each group will then identify a fragment of the larger scheme to take to a finer level of design resolution. Ultimately, this individual work will be coordinated and invigorate the overall design intent prior to a final presentation. And just as a brief indication of how individual interests might be pursued according to the design context in which they occur, here we see a one-to-one facade model for Caruso St. John, another project of theirs. This is a graduate of ours working for them at the time. And here we can imagine someone working on the team that designed Bilbao, considering the methods that will be used to clean the undulating interior surfaces. So in summary, I'd like to just say the overarching interest of the studio is expression and collaboration. We begin with a more granular research around the headings of expression principle, expression of material culture, and expression of program and situation. Teamwork and reference to our professional colleagues will be complemented by individual design studies. And just to finish, I put forward a number of questions arising to hopefully provoke further consideration of the studio's ambitions. So one might be, whose interests are being expressed through the medium of architecture? And who exactly is the intended audience? How might any given expressive intent persist over time and might refer to historical precedents for doing so? And more specifically, how do exterior and interior expressive intents interact with them? And finally, I'll leave you with the elephant in the room. Where does the issue of authorship reside? So that's all I have for you today. I hope that helps illuminate the intent of the studio a little bit further. And of course, I'll be available to answer any questions on Tuesday as we begin the class. So thank you very much.